Hey, yeah, let's because
Hey,
we have Afi Patterson standing by, so let's just hit on a couple of
right,
things and then bring her in. And we
right.
can chat because she has been in the courtroom. So go ahead. You had something you wanted to
So
repeat?
yeah. Today, as if you go to our Justice Serve TV, formerly Twitter, ex Twitter site, and my personal site, and yesterday and today we have published two exclusive reports that we stand by, absolutely stand by, about whether or not the DA's office was asked whether they want to proceed with ethics because of ethics considerations first, and then whether they want to proceed after Relly's testimony second. Yesterday, during the final recross examination by Joe Tacopino, we have asked the DA's office for comment. They have not commented. They have not asked the judge to lift the gag order so they could comment, which is done. It has been done in Los Angeles. It's been done in the Michael Jackson trial. They could do. They have not. All right. We stand by those reports 1,101,000,000%.
And we
Okay.
asked the defense for response as well, and
Right.
they're abiding
They're
by the
gagged.
gag order.
They're
Yeah.
gagged. Okay. I'm sure they would love to respond. I would imagine, usually defense loves to respond. I've been a defense attorney for a long time, but they're gagged. So somebody has to undo the gag to have them respond. The gag was asked for by the DA's office. So they can unask for it if they want to refute those reports.
This is
And
important to.
quite frankly, anyone who's watched this trial, if I'm an attorney, we talked about this today, and I have a client who says, well, I want to get a bag, but I need an attorney to get that $30 million of the bag, or else it's extortion. I'm going to the ethics attorneys right now then.
Yeah. So, and another important reach out that we did was to Benchu and Camille Vasquez because they're not gagged. And obviously, as they represent Mr. Efron in the civil matter, what happens in this criminal case has direct impact on what's happening in that civil matter. They have not responded either. So,
Okay. With that, I'm going to let you bring Afi on.
one of my favorite guests on Law and Crime, and I know you enjoyed her as well. And during the last few weeks, I felt like we were on together almost every day. It was great. Afi Patterson, a tremendous attorney in the Los Angeles area, and she has been in the courtroom for this wacky case. So let's get her in here. There she is. It's like old home week here, Afi. How are you?
Hello. Hi, Michael. I missed you
Hey,
so much. Linda, I missed you. It's so good
hey,
to
we
see you
miss you.
guys.
It's so
It's
good to
been
see
a
you
minute.
too. And you're in the courtroom where we'd love to be, but we're over here on the East Coast.
So we got tons of questions about what you've seen in there and the reactions, and so let's start with the jury. Give me your take on the jury, and as you can, how this case has unfolded. If you've seen a change in their demeanor, their attention span, their note taking.
No, I like this jury. They have taken copious notes. I've seen jurors with notebooks full of notes. I mean, 10, 20 pages.
Wow.
And they're incredibly attentive. They look at whatever attorney's up. They look at the witness to answer. They look at the exhibits on the screen and they read the transcripts. So they are very, very involved. There is one juror who I see every now and then kind of checked out, but she still pays attention, let's say 85-90% of the time.
What,
But
what's the
um,
breakdown? Men, women, alts, all of that.
I haven't even paid much attention to the breakdown, but I think, I want to say maybe four men. I'm not sure. But that's something that I just really hadn't,
So
taken account
mostly
of since I've
women,
been in
anyway.
there. Just
Mostly
I
women.
think it's mostly women. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Do you see any recoiling from them? Like if somebody gets up to the stand, any of the attorneys or the arguing, are they laughing at the arguing, or are they just like making it a tennis match? How's that going? Because there's been a lot of arguing in that courtroom.
They're so observant. They definitely watch everything like it's a tennis match. They'll look at, especially when it comes to Tacopina and Lewin, because they're the ones who have the most conflict. They'll look at Tacopina. They'll look at the judge. They'll look at Lewin, and it's like a match, and they're very attentive. But jurors take their cues from the judge, and I think the judge has been really light on Tacopina, but I also think that he's been pretty deferential because he has just a bombastic personality. He's incredibly aggressive, but he's been pretty calm for the most part, which is different to me because I've seen him be extremely animated, but he's definitely been deferential to the judge.
So don't forget to follow Afi at the Black Letter Law. Good luck with that. I
Right.
know you've had it for a while, but you really just started getting serious, right, about getting out there.
Who knows?
We understand.
It's a lot, you know. It's a lot, and you don't want to let people down. But I really, really enjoy it. I love it.
Well,
So,
good. We definitely enjoy your work. So, Relly.
Really, yes, really.
Come on. You know, this guy was on the stand for a long time. To say he was controversial is an understatement.
yeah.
Give us the jury reaction to the thing that is Relly.
Well, I think I'm assuming the jurors were kind of frustrated with him on his cross-examination because, you know, the audience members were all just really frustrated. But what I saw more than anything was a person who had not been prepped. You know, for a long time, I was like, who is prepping you? You know, the judge really took, you know, I think several times he said, stop volunteering information. You know, that he absolutely wasn't prepped, and if he was prepped, it wasn't substantial. You know, I think again, Tacopina is a very aggressive person, and if he finds your trigger point, he is going to unload the clip every time. And I think he found his trigger point, which was talking about lifestyle, talking about money, asking questions. The manner in which he asks questions can trip anybody up. He does, I think, a lot of compound questions. So I think Relly spent a lot of time, instead of telling what would be his truth, he spent a lot of time trying to not let Tacopina get away with anything. He spent a lot of time just being very combative and getting frustrated. Whereas I think a good prep would have had him ready. He would have anticipated questions. You know, you when you have your client, you let them know the type of questions that they're going to ask, especially the uncomfortable questions, and you sit in that discomfort with them so they can get past it, so they can give a good delivery on the stand. I don't think anybody did that.
Yeah. And to your point, the reason I would agree, and we've talked about this before, even the points that were basic facts didn't seem to have been prepped. Like, why isn't the girlfriend in the video? You know, and if she wasn't, where was she? I mean, just simple factual.
Right.
These were not tricky questions.
No.
Well, but it could also be if you're a prosecutor and you think that he's telling the truth, that he was shot at and grazed, but you think he may be lying about some other aspects, maybe you don't prep him on those aspects, like whether the girlfriend came back. Maybe you don't ask him those questions beforehand, because all you're really interested in is the final truth, as opposed to the details which got him there. So, and given the way Relly's been acting, I would be concerned, as I've said in the show, I'd be concerned both as a civil attorney, as a prosecutor, about whether or not he was making some stuff up, or about whether or not he was, you know, maybe wanting the bag and calling it extortion, but you have to have a lawyer to extort. I mean, I thought that was pretty damning, and maybe as a prosecutor you have to tread that line.
I just saw a defensive, unprepared person. I mean, he could have. It's like he didn't review his statement. It's like he didn't review the transcript from the preliminary hearing. It's like he, you know, because again, Tacopina, every time he said no or I don't remember, he said, "Well, let's pull out the transcript." I mean, and these were, like you said, Linda, very simple things. Right. So to me, again, just unprepared.
I felt like I was at the preliminary hearing. There was so much of it that was reread during his cross-examination. Okay, so we got a lot to talk about with Relly, but of course, more important, Rihanna. You know, she was there, I think, 3 days, right? So what was it like in court when she was there? Was it something perceptible, or was she just like, you know, one of the folks in the gallery?
No, she was just a partner in the gallery. I did stare. I don't care. It's Rihanna. But I think a lot of people did. But she seemed like a very concerned person, a very concerned partner in the gallery. There were times she wears little black spectacles. You know, she would be engaged. She would be leaning forward. She sat, I think for 2 days, she sat in between what I think is his mom and sister. And another day, I think she sat on the outside of his mother. But they seemed pretty close, pretty tight knit. But the gallery was fine. It was just an ordinary trial day with her there.
How many people are in there watching? How many people are in the gallery watching the trial?
It's full, but it's not as full as you would think. And I think that's because it's televised. So you've got a good bit of media, you've got a good bit of public defenders and DAs from the courthouse who want to observe. And then you've got the public, maybe about 10 people from the public. So, it's pretty full, but it's not like it was, or like it would be during something that's untelevised.
Yeah. And Afi, we talked about O.J. Simpson because, you can't show the gallery as a result after that case. But is the gallery making any reaction? For instance, let me give you an example. When the judge would say, stop, 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 or call and say, you call, his name is Mr. Tacopino. That's the one thing I remember. He's not disrespecting you. You don't disrespect him. Is the gallery making any reactions the jury could see?
Again, the jury, I've never seen anything like this. Just a jury that's so invested in what the attorneys are saying and what's happening in the courtroom, except the gallery. I don't think that they're paying attention to us. I think that they're invested in what's presented to them. But it's the audience, us in the gallery, we definitely have our reactions. And especially when Relly was on his cross-examination, we were extremely frustrated. There was that infamous day when the jury was let out and Tacopina and Lowen got into it. And it was just, and the judge is yelling, it was a lot. So I think the gallery, we've gotten pretty frustrated.
Yeah, tell us more about that, because the camera was not on all the time.
Y'all don't get the juice. Oh my gosh. Okay. It was, I don't know why it was heated, but the jurors were ushered out and, we were kind of staying because we get to hear a lot of the motions when the camera is cut off. And I don't know, they were just going back and forth. And then Joe did like this to Lowen.
Yeah, what was that? What was all that about? What was the reference, and what was?
I wrote it down.
I think it started something where Lou and Elisa's reported said something. I think it was. I looked at your blog, your notes on Twitter as you were taking X, I should say.
Yeah.
You're taking them. Lewin said something to Tacopino that your prop gun defense is not going to fly, and then Joe said something back, and then Lewin said something about Joe being on steroids, and then Joe said something about Lewin going to Robert Durst's wife's house for a vacation or something. That's what I read. I remember reading.
Yes. So, and it all started with, so Relly has the girlfriend who, and we believe it's the girlfriend who supposedly went to discover the shells with him. They tried to introduce a picture. That's what happened. So Tacopina tried to get Relly to identify a picture of her. And I'm assuming it was just some type of inappropriate picture. I say inappropriate.
You mean like the Kanye West, Bianca Censori photograph at the Grammys?
Maybe something like that.
Yeah,
so I think that frustrated Lowen. And I know Tacopina yelled, "Stop protecting her." And, that's how it started. And that's when they engaged in the back and forth. And it was a lot. I've never seen that between two attorneys where it was at that level. So, but trial, you get heated, you get passionate.
Oh yeah, and these two guys, I mean, they're big personalities. There's no doubt about it. We've been speculating as to why John Lewin parachuted into this case. I mean, you practiced there in LA. I don't know if you've worked with or against Polly P in the past, but it was his case. Then Gascon loses the election. Hochman comes in, and then almost weeks after that is when Lewin parachutes in. Any insight you have as to why that might have happened?
I have no idea. I have no idea, and I don't want to guess.
Okay, fair enough. But it certainly changed the complexion of the case. You probably agree with that, right? Can you imagine Polly P doing this entire case as we've seen it?
No. Okay. But I'm glad you gave me a little bit of that background, because for the most part, Lowen's just been sitting there kind of like an attending physician, and you have your senior resident handling everything, and he's definitely been on top of all of the objections. But it's just been very, very charged. I don't know. I can't speculate on why he came in, but it's with Takapina involved. It's a very high profile case with Rihanna involved, and ASAP Rocky is famous in his own right. So maybe that's a little bit of speculation for you, a little bit of dust I threw your way.
Yeah, I know, Linda, you're going to be bailing out on us, so jump in here with a bunch of questions.
I have to leave you a little early. I'm going to leave you with Michael, but of course you're in fabulous hands. But we did have a question here. Somebody has a great point. Afi, what are your thoughts on the plea offer to Rocky? Should he have taken it or not? As you sit here at this point in the trial.
I would say I don't know. It's interesting, but I think Rocky is definitely putting a lot of faith in his attorney's judgment and confidence. So it's a lot to ask of someone to take a plea deal, especially if you don't have any felony convictions and you believe that you didn't do anything wrong, or there's not enough evidence to prove you did anything wrong. But I don't know if you should have taken the plea deal.
We all have clients that sit there, and they're I'll take a pen, they have the legal pen, and then try to give you notes and all. What is ASAP Rocky's demeanor in the courtroom next to his attorneys? Is he one of those? Is he one of those clients that doing that and turning notes over, or is he sitting and letting his attorneys just take the lead?
He seems so comfortable with letting his attorneys take the lead.
What do you think about his chances of testifying? 0 to 10.
Zero. Zero. It would be nuts to put him up there.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Go back to day one of the trial before what we've seen has unfolded. Would that still be 0?
Always, from day one, 0.
Okay. All right, that's your default switch position, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything that could change that? If the prosecution, I think, is supposed to either rest tomorrow or this is the last witness. I was unclear whether this was the last witness or they have another witness tomorrow, the firearms examiner comparator, or whether today was the last witness.
No. I'm trying to get a witness list, but no, there's nothing that would change that. I do want to know what your opinions are. I don't know if you guys have been following it, the shell casing issue. Takapina keeps harping on the shell casing. Do you think, and I guess I don't think that he shaped it enough for us in the opening, the significance of the shell casing. So it's kind of like sowing a little bit of confusion, like, how are we supposed to take this? Because he brings up the fact that Relly was in LA in October and he was at a gun range and there might've been a 9mm there, but he went home to New York and then came back in November. And he's been implying, I guess, or I don't know, that somehow the shell casings from this trip in October, he maybe brought them back to New York with him and then flew back into California with them just in case an event like this would happen. And then he was able to plant that. So I just don't understand the shell casing and why we're harping on
my view, first of all, is that he's probably waiting to see whether or not the state is going to call the firearms comparator on the shell casings, so if they're against what's found in ASAP Rocky's house. But I think he's trying to make it either they were done in LA and he kept him, or he was concerned about those being the ones, because there's this whole thing with the Dunkin' bag that came from New Jersey, the Dunkin' Donuts bag, and the range was in New Jersey. Remember, it's been reported that he has some traffic violation tickets in New Jersey, which is where I'm from, by the way. And then he shot at the range in New Jersey. But then it's hard to get the shell. Michael knows better than me, maybe on guns. I don't know. Can you get spent shell casings in your luggage back, Michael? No.
You mean to go through TSA?
Yeah, whether checked or not.
Technically, because
is your bag
live ammunition, no, that's a no. But just shell casings, again, this assumes that they're discovered.
Right.
Even shell casings from a spent round should not be an issue because they're no more dangerous than nail clippers, maybe less.
I guess the answer is why he could wait. He could do them for the range, or he could have done them from New Jersey. I don't know.
Well, if he did it from the range,
but wait, he'd have to know that this situation is going to happen.
Yeah, if he's doing the range in October, is he going to just collect shell casings? You never know when you might need these, you know.
Well, okay, so this is my second idea with the shell casings. I think that they're trying to prove that the shell casings were planted, because if the shell casings were planted, that lends more credibility to the prop gun theory. But my position with the prop gun theory is, number one, you have to, I think I need evidence that it's an unmodified prop gun, and it's a prop gun that cannot fire any live rounds. If I don't have that, you know, whether these shells were planted or not doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think that's all going to unfold depending on whether or not this ammo expert, I will call him or her, gets involved. And we know that during the opening, Afi, we didn't hear much about that, because that was the ruling the court made, was that because this report was dumped on the defense so late, don't mention it in openings. And so they didn't. And that's probably why it was so vague. I think tomorrow we're going to find out one way or the other. If it remains vague and they don't call this person, you're right, for the jury, I think it's a big hole. You know, the question is, okay, if there are casings, can you connect those to the defendant? And I don't know, we've seen anything near enough to do that yet.
All right, I have to leave you both, okay? Because there's so many questions.
Yes, and I'm going to start running through these questions before Afi gets mad at me.
Everyone, let me just say that people were like waiting to come back and rushing to get back to meet you, Afi, to see you again, because you know we're trying to give everybody a platform to get back on. All of our great friends who are terrific lawyers, like you, a terrific lawyer.
I miss you guys so much. Like you.
So hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yes, you know, we'll definitely get you back on. You know, maybe as this, I think it's, you know, it could be done by the end of the week, but we'll definitely need to corral you at the end of this trial. So, Linda, best of luck.
Bye.
Thank you, Michael Bryant. I will see you tomorrow.
Okay, see you then. Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, so let's jump into some of these questions here. This is from Christine Vasquez. She says, let me see if I can punch this up here. She says, so do you know anything about Rocky's mom in court telling Relly to have mercy on her son?
Absolutely not. I look at this woman
Seems like a weird twisted little tidbit, doesn't it? But I'm asking.
I look at this woman every single day. She is dignified, distinguished, full of pride. There is no way she'd say anything like that to Relly, especially after his cross-examination performance. Never.
This you may not recall from pre-trial. It was during jury selection. Rocky's mom and sister were there, and the judge, Judge Arnold, wanted to know, you know, who was in his courtroom, especially during jury selection. You know, that's generally odd for a lot of stray people to show up. So he wanted to know who it was, and he finds out, and he says, he said, well, how old were you when you had Rocky? 7? And then he, you know, and then he complimented her. You're very beautiful, and that's on the record. So if you had missed that part of his performance or not, but that's how we first learned about Judge Arnold. That was our first.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So it was part inappropriate and part cute. You know.
You know, I see a good-looking woman with a teenager, and I'm always like, you know, you look like a baby yourself, you know. But I never ask, you know, how old were you when you gave birth? But you know, to each his own.
Yes. Well, I guess if you're the judge on the bench and it's your courtroom, you know, you get hanging out there. Okay. Let's see. This relates to the casings and the ammo. The question from K. Schmidt. Was he saying that he had ammo for a 9mm, but not the weapon itself? And this relates to the search, I believe. What's your thought on that? Because apparently there were 3 weapons found, and there was 9mm ammo found. I'm not sure there was it was all linked up. What's your take?
Yeah, so I think there was a shotgun, there was another gun, and then there was like a smaller handgun of some sort.
Yeah, there was a 44 Magnum, so it wasn't.
Yes.
That was, yeah, and then there was a third gun. Yeah.
And then they found ammo for a 9mm Glock. Was it a Glock?
Yeah, specifically for I didn't write down the number. Whether it was like a 48 or something, but is it specifically a Glock? Yeah, not just a 9mm, because there are lots of those out there. Glock narrows it down a little bit, but does that connect at all to the casings found, or do we not know that yet?
I don't know. I didn't see that part today, but I do remember in the opening, I remember Takapina saying something like the rounds that were found at the house were different from the casings that were found at the scene. But I can't confirm that because I didn't get that part of the testimony today.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually got to it either, but I do remember
Mm.
that part in the opening. This relates to what I think the person that may or may not be testifying tomorrow, LTO underscore UX underscore ER. I can
Hey,
never
LTO.
decipher the name. There's something.
Latoxer. It's something
I
brilliant though. It's like
I'm sure it is. I'm just
Lobster.
not smart enough to figure it out. There's a tactical
Either.
expert instructor on the jury, right? I don't, oh, I thought this was that relating to a witness.
Oh,
What about the jury? Is there such a person on the jury?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know. I was only there for like 2 days of jury selection, but
Okay.
that's interesting that they
Yeah.
kept that person.
Yeah. That would be very interesting, especially if, in fact, the
Yeah.
person testifying tomorrow has some sort of scientific type
Mhm. It
information.
could work both ways.
Oh yeah, yeah. Here's one. This one is specifically for you. It says.
Hey, Kristen.
I saw a headline about Rocky's mom in the courtroom, not happy. This is another one that,
Hello.
maybe this is where somebody is seeing this, not happy about the rally. It was on something called the Dark Side. I never heard of them, seen it when I logged in. So have you seen
I can
anything
imagine
that would
that.
suggest that mom, I mean, in general, yeah, why would she be happy about anybody testifying against her son?
She's known him since he was a teenager. So they went to school together, so I'm sure she knows him just on a very deeper level. I'm sure there's a sense of betrayal. So, he's not a stranger.
Yeah, and that
Not only
is,
was he in
that
this
that
music
backstory
group.
that backstory is interesting because, it's easy to
Mhm,
spin this as, these two guys coming up, struggling, they're inventive and entrepreneur like, and they want to get together as a group and do this music and producing and for whatever reason, one of them takes off, right? And the others are
mhm,
still struggling. And so you have a very
mhm,
human nature kind of jealousy, envy. The
mhm,
question then becomes, what is somebody willing to do, to equalize the playing field, to get theirs,
mhm.
right? So it's easy to spin that story.
Yeah, so, I think there's a lot of resentment and frustration on Relly's side, and I think he definitely expressed that in his direct exam, and he, on during the preliminary hearing. But I look at it like, one of my favorite books is The 48 Laws of Power, and I take it as, and I've said this before, Relly did not necessarily look at this situation in terms of good or bad and right or wrong. He looked at it in terms of opportunity. And I think that, again, also the defense, I think a lot of their defense is based on righteousness. They are angry and aghast and appalled that he is seeking money from Rocky, and I think that they're letting that trump the alleged wrong, which is the shooting. That's what I see in Cordell.
And I think you can see how that could easily mask whatever the underlying case is, right? Are you still there? Did I lose you? Are you there? Hello? Are you back? You got me now? I got you. If you can, are you there? Afi, calling Afi.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear
Okay.
me? My
Yeah, I got
Wi-Fi
you.
is
Yeah, you there's
doing
froze
something
up for a second here.
funky.
I love technology. Okay, so yeah, it's easy to see how that could the underlying facts could be overshadowed by this sense of a guy looking for what you call it an opportunity. Let me ask you this, because this to me was so powerful and not helpful for Relly. Uh-oh, I've lost I've lost her. Afi, she's in the void. Let's see if she pops back on here. So I want to ask her about, to me, what I think was a critical moment in the case where Relly was basically um, saying that the phone calls didn't happen, that if they did happen, it was, not him, it was AI. Let's see if maybe she tries to dial back in if she lost us here. Please dial back in again, Afi, if you have the technical capabilities to do so. So that to me was a pivotal point in this trial based on the testimony of the key witness, maybe the only important witness that this jury needs to hear from, because as we've said, you don't often have the alleged victim alive, as in this case. And so the question is, if the jury doesn't believe this guy, what else are you going to show the jury, if you're the prosecution, to get them over that beyond a reasonable doubt line? It is so difficult. Do you think it's going to be the cop today? Think it's going to be Detective Torres? I don't think so. He made a couple of points for the prosecution about the search, and yes, there were weapons there. So I guess if there are some weapons at Rocky's home, then maybe it's more than likely that the weapon was at Rocky's home. I think we have Afi back. Are you there? Can we bring her into the mix here? There you go. Are you back?
Oh my God.
What happened? You went off into the void there for a little bit. Did you just need to go take a break? No? You're okay?
No.
So what I was getting at was, to me, it was a pivotal point in the trial when Relly said those phone calls with Wally were not him. In fact, he even suggested it was AI. Now, that's fine for the moment, because what it did was it kept Tacopina from being able to introduce them, because he couldn't lay the foundation with one of the two on the. Well, what do you do? Well, you get the other guy. Well, that's Wally. Wally comes in. Yeah, that's him. Boom, boom, boom. All of this stuff's in. And I just think that's devastating for the testimony that Relly provided.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay, let's get into this. Let's get into this. Why would he say that?
Well, let's think about it.
Okay.
If when you call a friend or when you call an acquaintance, an associate, anybody, you don't expect to be recorded, right? And how often it might be different for you and me, but people don't often listen to their own voices. It's foreign to them. So I would think if somebody came up to me and said, Afi, is this you? Did you have this conversation? And you've got to remember, it probably feels like an ambush to him.
As it was.
So I'm
It
assuming,
was. Yeah.
I don't think it's completely out of the ordinary to say, no, that's not me. This is a lie. This is fake. I'm sure he's also thinking everything is a conspiracy. Everyone is against him. Because again, has he been properly prepped? Doesn't feel like it. So I think that Tacopina introducing those calls really didn't help the defense, because he introduced those calls and he played a few snippets, and then that's when Lowen stepped in and he played everything. And when he played everything, what we heard was the same story that he's been telling from day one, the same exact story. And we heard the fact that he wants his money. So,
Yes.
and then, the thing is, I just don't think it helped I don't think it helped the defense.
You don't think it was as damaging as obviously I do?
No, because we heard the same
I
story.
think
Well,
the way
what was the damaging part?
Well, I think the way he denied it was equally damaging. Not just the words that he said, no, that's not me, it's AI. The attitude was just so in your face, aggressive, that I think it just reinforced, how could you say that's not you? I agree that he was probably fuming mad at his friend, business associate, Wally, who did record him. And Wally testified that the reason he did was to protect himself. What do you think of that?
That's what he said. That's the reason he gave. And, he also further explained that he was trying to mediate the situation. I think originally he denied knowing anything about the shooting. And then I think we later realized that he was trying to mediate on behalf, mostly, maybe arguably on behalf or in favor of Rocky. But I don't think he wanted, I think he wanted a good, calm resolution for both sides. He even suggested that Relly should get his paper. I don't think that he wanted the police involved. And again, that's why I don't think that this played well for the defense, because you don't know you're being recorded, yet you recite the same story that we've heard time and time again, and you do it passionately, emphatically. So I think it just rang truer than anything else we heard on the stand.
Interesting. We'll see what the jury does with that, because I think it was a polarizing moment, and maybe our discussion evidence is that. Okay, so in the courtroom, Ben Chu, Camille Vasquez, have they been there? Were they there during Relly's testimony? In fact, that's not my question. I'm going to put that up here. That was
Yeah,
Simi Sharp. What was
they
that
were
like?
there. Hey, Simi, they were there. I like QQQ. That's there is I think an ETF called QQQ that I have. Anyway, um, they were there, I think, the first 3 days, and they were there for maybe the first either 2 days of his testimony. And then, when the cross came, I don't think they were there. I met Benjamin Chu. He was really, really nice, super engaging. But I think somebody needed to be there for him, during these cross and the redirects.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we felt
Mhm.
that I think we can agree that the cross was pretty brutal. It had
Oh, yeah.
some
Yeah.
moments. And if I were representing Relly in a civil case, I sent a note actually to both Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez, just saying, hey, in light of the cross examination of your
Mhm.
client in the civil case, any reaction, any comment? Of course, they didn't respond. I didn't really expect them to, but I wanted to give them a shout out. I interviewed Ben when I was at Law and Crime after the Depp case. I don't think I interviewed
Mhm.
Camille, who became a superstar after that
Mhm.
case, and they're both
She did good
very
work.
they're both very good attorneys. She was showcased, and Ben Chu already had a reputation, and she was like, "Who's
Mhm.
this?" And then bam, she was perfect for that case. Perfect because
Yeah.
when dealing with Amber Heard, it was great to have a woman do that. And sorry,
Mhm.
sexist as it may sound, that's just a tactical thing you do. Okay, so let's see if I got another
Yeah.
question for you here. Here we
Okay.
go.
I'm just thinking about, what Riley said on the stand. He said that there was no permanent injury, and I don't know if in the civil case, it's listed as a permanent injury, but he definitely said like he's good. So that's
That doesn't
interesting.
help. Yes, that doesn't help that. And we were talking about that in the context of causation and damages. Okay,
Mhm.
let's assume you prove the causation, that it was the gunfire that did it, and now you don't go to the hospital for
Mhm.
2+ days. It's like 2.5 days, and you do it because it seems like an attorney told you should. And it reminded me of some personal injury cases that I might handle or might defend, where the injured person, goes immediately to a doctor, sometimes a chiropractor. And I've said this before, my brother-in-law's a chiropractor, so with all deference to chiros, they get their, 3 times a week prescription. They go to the chiro for 12 weeks, X number of dollars in treatment, and then that becomes part of their demand package for their personal injury. Well, if you don't go to the hospital for 2-3 days, and then you're saying on the stand, I got no permanent injury, even if, unless you're going to, hang your hat on punitives, right? What are you going to get in the civil case?
Intentional infliction of emotional
Oh, sure.
distress.
You're going to have
So,
that, and you're going to try and, because it's an intentional act, you're going to try and, throw punies on there. And of course, you've
mhm.
got a defendant in the civil case who's got bank, so it's
Mhm.
not like he's judgment proof.
Mhm.
But let me ask you this. Now, be honest with me. If you're sitting there representing Relly, Mr. Efron, how
Mm.
do you feel about your civil case now at this moment?
I feel confident. I
Okay.
can rehabilitate anything.
Okay.
I can explain away anything.
I like it.
The permanent disability, with him say if I made a claim for a permanent disability and he said on the stand like, oh, he's good, there's no permanent disability issue. I don't know what I'd do other than consult a gray head and say, hey, I need some advice
Well, I
here.
think what you do
So that's
is
it.
he's just too proud. He's too
Mhm.
proud to admit
Oh,
that this
there
is,
you go.
really affected his life and will never be better, never be as it used to be. So I,
Michael,
I,
I'm
I,
moved. I love it.
I might be able to argue and make a couple of bucks on that one. But
Right.
I do think if you prove in a civil matter that a gun shot has been fired in your direction, or two, or however many, and you've been injured as a result, that is far different than, I slipped and fell at Walmart. I think
Mhm,
the
mhm,
act
mhm,
itself will generate a certain amount of damages, just because it's
mhm.
you don't want people shooting at people.
Right.
Okay, so this is
Mm,
what is it, Dazzle Star? Can you take a casing from a gun range? Answer that. Very, very demanding.
I love it.
I guess just in general, can you? I've been to a gun range a few times, but I've never really been. They always have like a little dustpan and a broom there,
Mhm.
so that you kind of clean up your shooting station when you leave. I've never really been tempted to take any, but I'm not so sure there's a law against it. Do you know?
I mean, yeah, you can take them, right? I can take them, but
Do you shoot? Have you been
to
to a shooting
what
range?
end?
Have you
Yes, of
been?
course.
Yeah.
I'm from Louisiana. I shoot, baby.
Yeah, well, you're in LA now,
But
so I wasn't sure.
yeah,
So do you are you licensed in LA or in California to
no,
carry? No?
no,
Yeah, it's a whole different thing in California.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so yeah, I agree with you that I think you can, but I
not
guess
yet.
most people don't. Now, are you working on that?
Yeah, so my husband and I we went to just a gun store, just kind of looking the other day, and I was like, what do people know that we don't know? Because it was packed. It was like more than you'd see at like retail outlets in the mall. But yeah, we need to get ready for something. So,
Yeah,
oh, and
it
let me
sounds
tell you something. Just
yes.
oh, a quick thought, something that the prosecution really kind of, I don't know if they do it on purpose or if they're being subtle about it, but one of the things that they're touching on is the area. It was a very high traffic area where the shooting occurred.
No doubt.
So it's a high traffic area, touristy, and then we see like the residential area when they left the corner of the street where the shooting occurred. So I think that may also play on people like endangering innocent people in a neighborhood, kids that could be hanging out, um, having a good time on a Friday or Saturday
Yeah, and how many stories have we heard about, innocent victims of these kinds of,
night.
a stray random shooting? So yeah, and so I think people are sensitive to that, no doubt about it. I had another. Let me
Mhm.
bring this up here for you. Question: do you see any reasonable doubt? It's kind of a
Okay.
broad question. What do you think?
Yeah, I see. Look, I think that I don't see any reasonable doubt, but I think that he can get a not guilty. I think Takapina is doing a fine job of sowing confusion. I call it the Chewbacca is a Wookiee defense. Um, he's just throwing everything on the wall, hoping something will stick. So I definitely think he can get a not guilty out of this. For me, what I'm thinking of is we know there was a gun. We know that it was fired twice. What is the defense to that? It can only be uh, some sort of justification, meaning you were defending yourself or others. But I'm also arguing you really can't bring a gun to a fist fight. But also, if it was a prop gun, you have to show me some type of proof that it was a prop gun, baby, and it had to be unmodified or unmodifiable, and it couldn't carry any live rounds. But that's me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and we know. I learned so much during
uh,
the Helena Hutchins case.
God rest her soul.
With
Yeah.
Hannah Gutierrez Reed's conviction for manslaughter.
Hmm.
That these prop guns are more a function of the ammo than the gun,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like you could
Yeah.
put dummy rounds in there, and I learned, difference between a dummy round and a
Mhm.
blank, because
Yep.
I used to kind of think they're the same thing, but no,
Right.
a dummy round just looks like a bullet, but can't be fired, doesn't do anything. It's a
Mhm.
dummy. A
Mhm.
blank has that wadding at the end, so there's no projectile to
Mm.
shoot out. But they all can be loaded into a prop gun.
Mhm. Yeah.
So So those are good questions that if we do hear from this, if there is an ammo expert or something that we hear, on the prosecution's case, then maybe some of those questions would be answered. What do you think about the fact that the cops, and unless you just find them to be the most inept cops on the planet, couldn't find any casings, couldn't find any damage from what would have been gunshots fired in the way that it's been described by Relly, which was kind of pointing to the ground or pointing the trajectory was downward, not like he's shooting up into the
Mhm.
air. What do
Mhm.
you think of that?
So yeah, I was watching him on the stand, and he said like I think the first shot was downward, right, and then the second, I don't know what he said about the second shot, but I know he was like using ills as a like a human shield. I don't know, um, where he shot that second shot, or if it was after or before he was using ills as the shield, but they were pretty close together, like maybe a second and a half apart. But I do think that I, I would just argue that really it would make sense that he would know where to go to get the shell casings because he was at the location at the exact spot where the events took place. He has experience with guns. We saw him at a gun range. We saw the shell casings pop off as he shot the gun. So he has experience with shell casing trajectory. So it makes sense that he would know exactly where to go to look for the gun. And it would make sense that the police officers would scan and canvass a wider area and maybe not be able to focus on a specific place where the shells are. That's just me making an argument. I'm not,
And it was dark. So,
yeah, it was
and
dark.
all of those factors. And I thought too that 7 cops on the scene was pretty impressive. I mean, I know they get a call, broadcast call, shots fired. Units will show up as best they can, but I thought with a effectively a non-injury shooting, that was a pretty good turnout by the cops. But maybe when they got there, realized this is, nobody's been really shot, even if the graze is a legitimate injury as a result. This is not going to be. We're not calling out CSI for this case, right?
Right. Yeah. But it was a pretty good turnout. But again, it was a really good turnout because of the location.
Yes,
right.
And that is,
that's important.
Hollywood and Vine, Sunset. I mean, that's the epicenter of Hollywood for for the not just for what people perceive Hollywood to be, but in terms of businesses, residences packed in there. One of the witnesses was on that 7th floor of that building that overlooks Vine. I called that the wannabe actress building. I could just, she was, that's just me. I know she was Australian, and I could just see people, I'm going to go make it in Hollywood, and they get a place on Vine or Hollywood or Sunset, and they're going to, God bless them. It happens. It definitely happens. But I saw her as one of those folks, and I don't think her testimony was all that helpful because she kept saying, I was on the 7th floor. I was on the 7th floor. So she saw like shapes moving here and there, and wasn't really all that helpful.
I think the purpose of her testimony was that she heard bullets. Like, I don't know that she was there to identify the people and to say, what took place, what happened, but I think it was significant that she was
and she was the 911 caller. Yeah, she was the 911 caller. So she was necessary. Yeah. And she did a fine job. I'm just giving her a hard time because it seemed like a stereotypical location for somebody to kind of move to and, try to make it big in the movie biz. So let's see. Let me see if I got a couple. I know I can't keep you forever here. Let me see if I can squeeze in a couple more questions.
Once I hate my people.
Let's see. From Ms. Lee or Leah, do you know for sure that the gun was fired? The detective was asked that question. He wasn't sure. I have kind of a combo question there. They found the guns in the house, but they didn't take any of them to see if there was if they'd been fired recently. Maybe they ruled them all out and decided it wasn't important. But what do you think about that question about was a gun fired?
Okay, so 2 parts. I was listening to the testimony today, and they didn't take any of the guns, and they didn't take them because they were going by the shell casings that really gave them. So they were trying to match a gun to the shell casings. Do we know that the gun was fired? Yes. We have a 911 caller who is living out her dreams on Vine. We have audio. Yes, we know a gun was fired.
So do we know? Do we know that it was a gun that Rocky had, that he fired the gun?
Unless you want to believe and that there was someone else, in the same area at the same time firing a gun, that's always a possibility, right?
Yeah, I just wish they would have done a little better investigation.
We know something was fired. Who fired the guns? Or who fired the gun? We don't know, but we have somebody on video holding a gun in the area where we heard gunshots and where 2 people called 911 saying there were gunshots. So, draw your own conclusion or make your own arguments against it.
Okay. And it'll be very interesting to see how this happens. I'm pretty sure that Lewin is going to do the closing when it happens. Yeah. And I think he'll be making some similar arguments, but he'll be saying it louder with his arms flying around. And,
he will bring the drama.
He will. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Pokemon 730. Really appreciate Afi giving her perspective. Yes, we definitely
Thank you,
do.
darling. I appreciate you for appreciating me. Make me
Again, one of
feel
my
good.
favorite guests when we were on Law and Crime, and I hope you'll come back again so we can.
Was that really,
do
Michael?
this.
Are you just saying that to make me feel good and
No,
blush a little bit?
I've never said that to anyone before, as a matter of fact. So there you go.
Little
Yeah,
tear.
I think we have
Okay,
a
thank
moment
you.
here. Okay. Well, are you going to go back into court this week at all or not?
I'll probably go tomorrow or the day after, but I have to get some work done today.
Yeah, I understand how that damn work
Yeah.
gets in the way sometimes. We get lost
Mhm.
in this spiral of what we do. Don't forget, folks, check out the Black Letter Law. And I got that right, didn't I? Black Letter Law?
Yeah, the Black
Yeah.
Letter Law. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And we will see you next time here. Afi Patterson, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Michael.
You bet. Talk
And
to you
my
later.
favorite, too.
Oh, thank you. So take that, LKB.